Heeding medical advice to avoid long-distance flights, I had to decide to cancel my transatlantic ride to Toronto. Therefore, welcome to Gdansk, former Danzig, where this video is filmed, and close to where I have been born. It was Milton Zeisman who had proposed to replace my talk in Toronto with that video. Andrew Fitz accepted it. Clark Welton helped in editing the slides I show you. He hasn't seen everything, so if there's still mistakes left, they're all mine. And we have an audience here. It's my son, Gunnar Heinsohn. And I will go back 20 years when I wrote this book, The Creation of the Gods. I dealt with the impact of celestial events, of celestial powers on the religion of man. And I stopped this book with the catastrophe that divides the Bronze Age from the Iron Age. If you believe in a Greek Dark Age, you know that the Bronze Age comes to an end around 1100 BCE. If you don't believe in it, as I do not, it ends around 600 BCE. And if you are a nerd for stratigraphy, it may even end later, like 400, 350 BCE. Anyway, it will end before the first millennium AD, after Christ C, whatever you prefer to call it. And I have to say today that the major flaw of this book was ending in the first millennium BCE and not looking carefully enough at the first millennium AD. Of course, I was aware of the crises in the first millennium hitting the Roman Empire, but I belonged to those who wrote about these crises as caused by demographical or by economical factors. This was the major flaw of thinking at that time, and I try to remedy this today. I worked on the problems of the first millennium AD since around 65 months, and we will look at the events that took place there right away. We start with a summary made by Wolf Liebeschütz. He survived the Holocaust in England. He was from Hamburg, Germany. And he had to say this: the climax of the classical city was reached in the first 2 decades of the 3rd century. After that, it never recovered. The empire was passing through the crisis of the 3rd century. First hit. Next one. During the 6th century, the cities of the Greek East were hit by a series of severe blows. The effect was like the crisis of the 3rd century. We continue from these 2 crises to another one that is much less known. But I just want to show you here what these 2 crises meant. First, you had this area attacked, and 300 years later you had this area attacked, and it looks as if there was very little overlap. And for such a big strike, you would expect, of course, some overlap at least here at these frontiers. Now to the 10th century collapse. Polish scholars were quite avant-gardist in that research. It shows us that we have massive destructions running all the way from Norway to modern Iraq. And I just quote here on the catastrophes of the Viking cities. In the Scandinavian lands, the old rural places of power, commonly called central places, all met their end. A general conversion to Christianity took place at this time. If we move to Poland, there was a rapid, sometimes catastrophic collapse of many of the pre-existing